Hello everyone, welcome to a new chess video. Welcome to the missile trap. This is a trap that will let you win in just 8 moves and leave your opponent stunned with no options left. This trap starts with e4 and happens in the Scandinavian defense. d5, e4, d5. Scandinavian defense. The opponent who plays the Scandinavian defense knows that the usual thing is to capture here and then recapture with the queen. But we're going to set up the missile trap, which has nothing to do with capturing here. Instead, we give up this pawn, and even let them attack our knight on the very first move. What do you think? Does the trap look good or not? First of all, thanks for the support, guys, because I'm getting a ton of comments, and I love talking with you all. You know, I reply to everyone, and thanks for all the likes. We're breaking records for likes day after day, so thank you so much. Let's keep going with this spectacular trap. They're attacking our knight. Where are we going to put it? Well, the ideal square to place it is exactly this one right here. Why? Because we're attacking this pawn, and now, for example, they can't chase our knight away, since we would recapture the pawn and all the advantage would be ours. So what they have to do is develop a piece like the knight while defending this pawn. This would probably be the best continuation for black. What are we going to do? We're going to make a move like d3. Notice that here we're, allowing them to exchange a pawn. And also, since black has an extra pawn, they might think, well, I'll trade this pawn. And now, after this move, I don't just keep an extra pawn, but I also end up with better development. Well, not better development either, but an extra pawn. Let's leave it at that. An extra pawn. What happens is that now, here, most people fall into this mistake. Notice that they try... this knight really bothers them, and they try to make it go away. This is already a huge blunder. And here comes the missile trap, also known in the Tennyson Gambit as the Tennyson Gambit trap, which is the gambit we played at the beginning, right? We sacrifice this knight, which has to be captured no matter what, because if it isn't, we're attacking the queen, and if the queen moves away, we would take the rook. Therefore, this knight must be captured by the king, no matter what. And here we would already be winning the queen. How? With this missile sacrifice. Here comes the missile. Brutal. We check with the bishop. Notice that we're attacking the queen, so you can't drop down to defend her because the bishop is there. You have to take the bishop, and now we take the queen completely for free. Here, it looks like we've already won, but it's not the first time I've seen online that people say we've already won the game here, and it could still get complicated for us. The opponent has a lot of tricks here to stop us, and I'm going to show you mainly how to maintain this advantage, which is actually pretty simple. Notice that here, one trap could be that black plays this move here, e5. Now, I've seen in an online tutorial that they're telling us to take this pawn and get out of the pin. What is the pin? This one right here. Right now, black is threatening to check us with the bishop and take our rook. So we have to get out of this pin. And I've seen that a very typical move would be to take this pawn here. Well, this would already be a huge blunder, because after the move knight to c6, where is this queen going to go? This queen is completely trapped. It can't go here, it can't go there. It's totally trapped. And after a move, what did it be? Sorry, this pawn is here, okay? A move like castling or knight to c3. Notice that, for example, knight to e8 is threatening the queen, and this queen would be completely lost. Therefore, this queen can't go anywhere. Can you take this pawn? No. So here, if instead of playing d5, they try to set another trap like knight to c6, which seems like it doesn't threaten anything, can we take this pawn? No. Why not? Because after e5, we'd be in the same trap again. This queen can't go anywhere, because she would be captured, and after whatever move, knight to e8 would come, and we'd be caught in the same trap again. So, what should you do if your opponent plays either e5 or knight here? Well, the move you need to make, no matter what they do, is you have two options. One, you can play it safe and bring the queen back to her original square, d1. This would be a good move. Correct. Why? Because it's true that we'd be a bit passive and wouldn't have any pieces developed, but the advantage of having an extra queen is so big that it would make up for it. After whatever move, we castle and just chill. And the move I like is to put the queen on d3, giving a check, and now, yes, being a bit more active in the position. For example, if they come this way, then now we could just castle, and we'd have a completely winning position, and our queen is no longer in danger. Notice that this trap happens in the Scandinavian defense, e4, d5. This trap is really powerful, but of course, your opponent has to play the Scandinavian defense. and most players here play e5 or even c5. But d5, even though it's played quite a lot, and I'm sure it's been played against you 1,000 times, it's not the main defense. I'm going to show you a way to get your opponents to play it much more often. We'll start with knight to f3, and notice that knight to f3 is protecting the e5 square. Therefore, they won't be able to play e5. Instead, they'll play d5. And once they play d5, expecting us to play d4, we're going to play e4, and we'll already be in the same position as the Tennyson gambit. We've simply reversed the order of the knight and the pawn. Why? Because when you start with e4, it's rare for them to play d5 against you, although sometimes they do. But when you play knight to f3, it's very likely they'll play d5. So we would reach the same position, but through a different and much easier route. Notice then, if what we need to do is start with knight to f3, the most common move, as we've seen, is d5. But it's not the only one. They might also play, for example, knight to f6. And let's see how to play here to reach the gambit again. Like I said, the most popular move here is d5, right? So that's the move you'll face in most cases. And then you already know what to do? e4. If they play knight to f6, you're going to play d3. Why 3? Because now you're targeting this square here with e4, and your opponent won't stop playing d4 with the move d5, because we'd be losing a pawn. But here, we're going to do it anyway. And after the exchanges, notice that here we'd be giving away this pawn. But when they take this pawn here, we already know that we shouldn't recapture, but instead bring the knight over here, and we'd be in the same position. The opponent exchanges these pawns, we bring the bishop over here, and once again we're in the same trap, threatening that massive missile. If they play h6 again, which is actually the most common move here, you already know we can sacrifice the knight. And again, when they take it, boom, right here. They can't retreat, so we'd be in the same trap as before. Now, I'm going to give you a bonus tip. That's pretty funny, and if you play online, you can use it in quite a few games. Imagine we play knight to f3 as the first move, knight to f6, d3, and here instead of playing d5, our opponent plays a move like g6. There are a lot of players who play like this, bringing the bishop out to g7 and then castling. It's a very powerful setup, as you know, and a lot of players use it because they've learned it by heart. So after d3, they play g6. I'm telling you, this is a little trick for when you play online, because people do this without thinking. They make pre-moves. Like I said, this is just a bonus, an extra tip. It's a really silly trap. We're going to play e4, and after bishop g6, be careful, because they're already setting up pre-moves here. They've already got the pre-move for castling ready. So when you play e5, I checked the database, and it's crazy. We're threatening the knight so easily. And would you believe that about 70% of people just castle right away without even thinking about what we're doing? So we take the knight and end up with a huge advantage. And here, if they don't have the pre-move set and they develop the knight, we can just continue with a completely normal game. But I encourage you, if you're playing online and your opponent uses this setup, to try this move. Because I've actually tested it myself and it really works. I played 2 games, and in one of them, they castled, and I took the knight. It's a totally silly trap, but it works. So we've seen what happens if, after starting with e4, they don't play this move, which is why we're starting with knight to f3. Let's say they play knight to f6. We'll play d3, as you know, to prepare for d5 and e4. After the exchanges, we said that we bring the knight over here, threatening this square. And if they take here, we've already seen what happens. We fall right into the trap. But many players with the black pieces, instead of capturing here, first bring their bishop here to attack our queen. Let's see what to do in this case. We could get into complications here, but we want to keep the trap active, so what we'll do is play queen to d2. You simply attack my queen, I move it to a safe square, and I keep the trap going by offering you this pawn exchange, which I'm going to recapture with this bishop here. Now here, as always, what's the most common move played by black in this position? They're bothered by the knight and they chase it away. Huge mistake. But what happens here? Even if they don't play h6, if they play, for example, g6 to develop the bishop this way, the trap would be the same. We take with the knight here, even if the pawn is on g6, it doesn't matter to us. They have to capture no matter what, because if they don't, they'll lose the queen or the rook. And here we bring the missile back again. Even though the position is slightly different, the trick or the trap is the same. They can't go back to defend the queen. They have to take this bishop, and we capture the queen. Notice that no matter how much some details change, the trap is still the same. Why am I showing you all these options, instead of just one like most channels do? Because in a chess game, there are so many possible moves that the more we know, the easier it is to catch them in the trap. That's why I try to give you lots of options for what your opponent might do, so that no matter what they play, you can set the trap. Pay attention to this variation, because it's spectacular. Knight to f3, knight to f6, d3, d5, e4. And look here, an amazing line for black could be if they capture here. You already know what we have to do when they capture. Place the knight over here. Now they come at us with the bishop to f5. This is a very, very interesting position, and we have to think about what to do here. The move we're going to play in this case is knight to c3, and let me explain why. Notice that now they're threatening us. They're threatening to capture this pawn, and if we recapture with the bishop, they can simply trade it off. And at that point, there's no trap left, and we're down a pawn. Plus, when they attack this knight, we'll have to move it, because we don't have any counterattack. What happens is that if they take this pawn here, what we're going to do is not capture on d3 as they expect, goodbye to the trap, but instead we have a pretty interesting move, actually a very interesting hidden move, which is queen to f3. Queen to f3 creates a double threat, the bishop on f5 and this pawn on b7. So there's only one move that defends both at the same time, which is to bring the bishop back to its original square, a bishop that had to leave the square here. Now yes, we can capture this pawn, and we end up with a totally overwhelming development advantage. It's true we're down a pawn, and black has played very well, but we have a truly impressive attack. We're going to castle on the next move. Plus, all our pieces are well placed, and the one that's left can come out right away, while black still needs 3 moves to castle. 1, develop the bishop, and 3. So here they have all their pieces stuck back here. We have a pretty interesting event. Alright, chess teacher, it's great that you tell me I have a winning advantage here, but if you don't explain how to win, I won't be able to do it. Well, obviously I'm going to explain how to do it. For example, if they play e6, which is a totally normal developing move, as I said, to get the bishop out and castle. We continue, for example, with bishop to e3. Black can continue, for example, with bishop to e7, calmly and passively. We castle long, well on, because look where this rook ends up, in an X-ray line to this square, for example, to the queen. We're threatening check and to take the queen on the next move, a discovered attack, so they have to defend, for example, with knight to bd7. And here we're going to make a move that's very important for you to remember if you reach this position. Queen to h3. It's a very interesting move, and I'm going to explain why. Notice that if they try to kick out this knight to avoid problems, we're not going to sacrifice it here. The trap comes from somewhere else. We're going to sacrifice the knight over here. Notice that we're already completely winning, but they can't... Oh, sorry. They have to capture this knight. It's mandatory. Why? Because notice that this queen is trapped among its own pieces, so it has nowhere to go. And when they take the knight, we'll bring in the bishop here with check. The only option for the king is to move here. We'll bring the queen in through here, and this checkmate on the next move is absolutely unavoidable. Notice that the only move that could defend this position might be the knight coming here, and besides the fact that they're giving it to us for free, they're also giving us the queen. They could also try bringing the queen over here to defend, but we just take it, and that's it. So here, we're completely winning. Either it's checkmate, or they give us the queen. Therefore, this is a completely winning position. I am showing you this in case any of you don't know how to continue from this position. So I think I deserve a good like, right? Alright, let's finally look at one way black can defend after this gambit. You know, you can play e4 first, knight to f3, whichever you prefer. I recommend starting with knight to f3. When they take our pawn, we come here, and we've already seen what happens when they defend with knight to f6. All the strategies we had against knight to f6. But the thing is, they can also defend with the bishop, even though it's not very common. We also need to learn about this move and how to counter it. The option in this video is d3, a super aggressive and super interesting choice. If you want me to explain the move knight to c3, which is a more solid move, but would make for a much longer video, a much more complete video about the Tennyson Gambit, you can let me know in the comments and we'll do it. There's no problem at all. The thing is, in this video, I'm going to show you the aggressive move, which is the one we like best. d3, setting up some spectacular tricks. Here, when we play d3, what is our opponent going to do? Well, the most common thing, obviously, is that they take this pawn. Knight, I mean. Pawn takes d3. Now, when they take this pawn, what are we going to play? Well, we're not going to recapture this pawn. Instead, we're going to play the classic move that, if you've been paying attention to this video, we've already played before. Queen to f3. Now it's even better than before. Even though it's a very similar position, without the knight on f6, this queen to f3 is even stronger. We're threatening this pawn with 3 pieces. We're threatening the bishop, we're threatening this b7 square, so we're putting on massive pressure. Notice here that black has several possible moves. If they decide to defend this bishop with the move e6, what are we going to do? Well, what we're going to do is the following. We'll take the pawn with the bishop, and let me tell you, it's happened to me so many times that they take the bishop without realizing that queen takes f7 is checkmate. The number of times this has happened to me is absolutely incredible. However, after queen to f3, the best move for black isn't e6, but actually, the best move is to take this pawn here. Notice that now we're getting a little worried. They're attacking our knight here. It's true, it's defended by the rook, but we'd lose a piece because remember, this is just a pawn. And also, notice that they're threatening something else. If we were to take this bishop here, for example, they'd be giving us checkmate. So this pawn here is starting to look dangerous. Don't worry, we don't have any problem if we play knight to c3. We develop our knight, this pawn isn't doing anything anymore. This square is defended by the knight and the queen, so the queen can't get in anymore. And now we're the ones with the threats. We're threatening this bishop, which has to be defended. Here, what we're going to do is a brutal sacrifice, which is typical of this gambit. Notice that we're down 3 pawns. We give up the knight here, which they have to take no matter what, because we're making a spectacular fork. And now, taking advantage of the pin of the queen on the bishop, we'll play g4, putting massive pressure on the bishop. Notice that we've won this bishop for sure, and there's no way to save it. Black might try a move like bishop to b4, putting more pressure on our position, trying to stir things up by getting rid of this knight here, which is the main defender against the queen's entry. But this doesn't cause us any problems. Let's see what happens after the exchanges. We'll simply take this bishop here, without worrying too much about this exchange here, for example, which we'll recapture with the pawn. Yes, it's true, we're damaging our pawn structure, but we're not too concerned because now, after black recaptures this pawn, we're not going to take with the queen, but instead bring more pieces into the attack. Bishop to c4. Let's give power to our pair of bishops, which are super solid. Also, this king can't castle anymore. It has to move back. And what are we gonna do? Well, obviously we can still castle. We don't have this pawn, but that doesn't seem like a big deal. We castle, bring the rooks into the attack, and they have to defend over here. What will we do? Well, for example, we could play this move first, right? There are several moves, right? Here we could, rook to e1 check. They have to defend. Now, yes, over here, we can also bring the other bishop into the attack and look at the pressure we have right now in the game. We're putting pressure with the rook, with the bishop, with the rook. We're putting on absolutely spectacular pressure. We have all the pieces coordinated, and most importantly, the king is super unsafe in the center and can't castle. We have totally unmatched pressure, and there's no way to stop this. It's gonna be a win for sure, as long as we play carefully. I hope you loved it. I hope both you and I can try it out in our next games to see what results we get. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave your like and your comment. I love talking with you all. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.